And we are beginning with breaking news tonight. The 11-day hunt for a dangerous inmate escape is over. Vicky White and Casey White captured and in custody after a chase and car crash in Evansville, Indiana. They had been on the run since April 29th, armed and dangerous, with the entire nation looking for them. But investigators were on their tails, tracing another getaway car from Tennessee to Indiana just this morning. Senior national correspondent Brian Enton is in Indiana tonight, and that ended up being the key piece authorities needed.
Yeah, it's wild, Rudabeh. We started out the morning in Tennessee. We were trying to find the people who discovered Vicky and Casey White's getaway car there, the SUV that they started this whole saga with almost 2 weeks ago.
All right, great reporting, Brian. You've been there the entire time. Thank you. We want to bring in now the sheriff with Vandenberg County, Dave Wedding. Thanks so much for being here today. I don't assume you thought that your day was going to end up like this morning.
No, I really didn't. We have been investigating leads throughout the day, knowing that the vehicle had been originally spotted on May the 3rd. It was kind of shocking to me that the people would stay in our community for 6 consecutive days.
Right. So what do we know about what they were doing? They were staying in a hotel, right? I mean, that was kind of surprising to me. I figured they would be hiding in a car, hiding in the woods somewhere.
That's correct. I thought it was a little unusual that they were at a hotel that was on a major thoroughfare in our community. And as our U.S. Marshals Task Force and the task force from Alabama and Mississippi were investigating, the Evansville police officers saw the second vehicle that had been identified as a possible suspect vehicle in the hotel parking lot. When our task force officers went to check in on this, the suspects saw them and fled briefly up Highway 41, and they were rammed by our task force officers. As you can see in the footage there, they're in a ditch. When we approached the vehicle, the woman had a self-inflicted gunshot wound, or at least it appears that it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound at this time. The other person had minor injuries, and they were both transported to local hospital.
What do we know about Vicky White's condition tonight? I mean, she is a highly skilled and trained law enforcement officer. She knows about weapons. I mean, if it was her intention to take her own life, how serious are her injuries tonight?
I would say she's in grave condition at this time.
You think she is going to make it?
Well, I'm not a physician, but I think she's in a very serious condition right now.
Okay, and what about Casey White? How badly was he injured in the crash, and is he cooperating?
His injuries were not that bad.
And is he cooperating?
At this time, yes, he is.
Okay, and can you tell us anything about what you've learned in talking to him?
Well, we will take him to our operations center. We haven't had a lengthy conversation. He was taken to a local hospital. He will be interviewed by our detectives. There's people from the FBI involved in the Marshals Task Force as well. So we will learn more overnight.
Do you have any idea why they chose your community to stay for 6 days? Their ties there?
I have no idea. It's almost amazing that somebody that's on the run, somebody with that much notoriety, would stay in one place for 6 consecutive days. But they are criminals, and criminals usually make poor decisions and meet their own demise.
So whose jurisdiction is this now? Is it now your jurisdiction? Is it the U.S. Marshals? Is it the Sheriff's Office out of Alabama?
Well, in our community, they didn't really commit that many offenses. So we will gladly let them be extradited back to Alabama, where the more serious charges will be taking place. We will consult with our prosecutor to determine what, if any, charges that we will tack on. But I think he's facing plenty from the state of Alabama.
And what can you tell us about the vehicle they were traveling in? Was it stolen? Was it reported stolen? Do we know anything about that?
It wasn't reported stolen, and they may have purchased it, but it was not reported stolen, to my knowledge.
Anything else that surprised you about this case? I mean, obviously, the law enforcement depended heavily on the community, on tips. Their photos were out there. Their surveillance video was out there everywhere. And then ultimately it ended up being a car wash that, ended this 11-day manhunt.
Well, this is a prime example of generally the community help law enforcement solve many more crimes that we could solve on our own without the initial help from the car wash owner. We would have nothing to go on. So we commend him for his quick action. And then as a police officer, spotted the second vehicle in the hotel parking lot. So that officer acted quickly and notified us so that we could seek these people out.
Have you, in all your experience, ever seen anything like this before where you're chasing down a fellow officer or now former fellow officer?
I don't remember chasing fellows, but from time to time, some police officers go bad and they commit crimes like anyone else in the general public. Thank goodness it's rare, but it does happen, and it is a sad day for all of us.
And now that you know that they've been there for a number of days, do you have any other indications about what they were doing? Were they just holed up in the hotel, or do you have any other leads or information about what they may have been doing in your community all this time?
Yeah, it's interesting because with the high-profile nature of this case, and with the person being approximately 6'9", he's certainly going to draw a lot of attention wherever he goes. So we didn't get many reports of them out and about. So I'm not sure when they went out, how they got their food, or what they did, or even how long they were at the hotel. But as we interview him, we hope to find some of those answers.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time tonight, Sheriff Wedding. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. Okay.
And Sheriff Rick Singleton is with the Lauderdale County Sheriff's Office in Alabama. He has been leading this investigation. Thank you for being with us. Did it make sense to you when you heard that they were in Indiana?
Well, we knew they went north from here originally. Once they abandoned the Fort Edge in Tennessee, we wasn't really sure which direction they went. But, when they left here, I don't know what their plan was as far as where their ultimate destination was, but no, it doesn't surprise me they ended up in Indiana.
And what is your reaction tonight? I mean, I know that you knew Vicki personally. She was, from all accounts, a model employee at the sheriff's office. I mean, there must be a little bit of sadness in hearing this and hearing that she's in grave condition, even though she committed these crimes.
Well, it is, because she was a friend, and we certainly was hoping she wouldn't have any ill harm come to her. We're very appreciative of the fact that no citizens were injured, that no other law enforcement officers were injured. We hate that Vicki's in the condition she's in. To be honest with you, the fact that she was injured, the way she was, I'm surprised that he didn't do something.
Yeah. On a personal level, have you come to terms with the fact that she wasn't who you thought she was?
I think I finally have. We thought we knew Vicki White. Obviously, we didn't. To think that she was capable of pulling a stunt like this just is beyond imagination. I mean, we just. I guess we're still struggling with it to a degree, but she absolutely, planned this, orchestrated it. He was behind bars. He really couldn't do much in the position he was in. So she put all this together, and it's all on her.
Mm-hmm. We heard from the manager of that car wash in Indiana where that surveillance camera captured pictures of Casey White. I know there was a reward being offered. Is he now going to get that reward?
That's going to be up to the U.S. Marshal Service. They're the ones that posted the reward. We don't really have anything to do with that part of it. But his tip certainly, we've received numerous tips, even related to the truck and some other things. So, I don't know how they'll do that, but he's certainly entitled to his share of it, if not all of it.
And the charges filed against Vicki White today, I mean, that was the news leading up to this huge breaking news and the way this all came to an end. And it was in relation to her using an alias to purchase the getaway vehicle that was later abandoned. Why focus on that right now? Was the goal just to pile on the charges as you built the case with the prosecutor?
No, it wasn't to pile on the charges. She, in fact, forged a signature, and she stole an identity. Those are actual factual charges. It was just that, with everything going on, I think, obtained those warrants late Friday evening. The media here in Florence have been asking us about, the false identities and so forth. So it's just more or less to let them know that that's something we did follow up on.
Mm-hmm. And now it seems so small compared to everything else that's transpired since, and the other charges she's facing, assuming she makes it out of the hospital. And we know that these two had a long relationship, right? I'm sure you're all combing through all of their correspondence. What are you looking at? Are there letters? Are there phone calls? Are there transcriptions of visits?
We know there were phone calls between Vicky White and Casey White while he was in the state penitentiary. He was here in 2020 for an arraignment. He returned to the Donaldson Correctional Institution and came back here February this year. During that 2-year time, they did have several telephone contacts, not aware of any other contacts. That was, of course, during COVID. At first, I was informed there were physical contacts, but that was not true.
That was not true. Okay. And obviously, Vicky, I asked the last sheriff we talked to, she is a trained, experienced law enforcement officer. She has weapons training. She knows how to use a weapon. When you hear about the reports from that law enforcement agency that she shot herself and that she was likely trying to take her own life, I mean, she might not make it out of the hospital alive.
She may not, and that was another concern we had, that she might do that, especially if she, if he was captured and she wasn't. But it's unfortunate. I hate that it ended that way for her. We certainly didn't wish her any ill harm. We were hoping we could get her back safely. She has a family that loves her, and in spite of everything, and we hope she pulls through it.
And what about him? What is your message to Casey White, if you could speak directly to him tonight?
He because he manipulated or whatever Vicky White, it's not going to happen again in the Lauderdale County Detention Center. When he comes back here, he will eventually have to come back here to face the trial, and he will be back in our detention center. But I can assure you we're taking measures. I told at the news conference earlier, he'll be isolated in a cell. He'll be handcuffed and shackled. And, if he wants to sue me for that, let him go for it.
All right. And you are making changes there at that facility?
Well, we're limited in what changes we can make. The facility is, it's a poorly designed facility. It's about close to 30 years old. It's an old linear, what we call a linear type jail. It's got main hallways, got cell blocks on each side, but this particular facility is concrete walls with a 3 by 3 foot window to see in the cell blocks. So unless the deputy's standing right there at the window, he can't really see what's going on in the cells. We just have, and this is something we've been discussing with our county commission for 7 years. It's not a safe facility for our staff. It's not, it just got a lot of problems. But I can assure you, we're going to make room to put him somewhere by himself. He will not be in a cell block with other inmates. We have no single cells in this facility. They're all, at minimum, there are 16 people in a cell.
And maybe the commission will take another look at the proposals now. Sheriff Singleton, thank you. You've been very gracious with us, giving us information along this entire journey. We appreciate your time tonight. Thank you. So
thank you.
What now for a case that has captivated the country? A dangerous fugitive back behind bars, his alleged accomplice hospitalized, the charges these two face, and the trial that's likely to follow. Plus, I speak with the son of a woman Casey White is charged with murdering. A family living on edge ever since this manhunt started. Their reaction next on News Nation Prime. Breaking news tonight out of Indiana. A nationwide manhunt that has gripped the country for more than 10 days has ended. Casey White is back in custody. The former corrections officer who helped him escape, Vicky White, is hospitalized in grave condition after she shot herself while the two were fleeing police this afternoon. Authorities had called Casey armed and extremely dangerous. They considered Vicky smart and frugal. And now many wonder where this case goes from here. Casey is a convicted felon and is charged with murder. He also has a history of carjackings and violent crime. Vicky is now charged with helping him escape. She also faces forgery and identity theft charges. Dave Ehrenberg is the state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. He joins me now to break down some of the legal aspects of this case. Welcome to the show. Assuming Vicky does make it, do you think that she has a defense that she was somehow coerced and manipulated by this dangerous sociopath, that she had just lost her ex-husband who she was caring for? She was retiring. She may have been in a vulnerable place.
Thanks for having me back on. I think her best defense would be that she was somehow coerced into doing this, because you have to act intentionally to be guilty of the crime of facilitating an escape. But her actions leading up to the escape sort of show that there was no coercion here, that she was probably the one who created this plan. I mean, she sold her house for half of its value. She took the cash and bought this Ford Edge vehicle using a alias and forged someone else's signature, or at least faked a signature. She also, after she sold her house, she stayed at her mother's home until the night before the escape. Then, for some reason, she went to a Quality Inn, stayed there, I guess, to plot the whole escape. And also, she violated protocols by letting Casey White out by herself without the two armed guards that were required to take such a dangerous prisoner out. And also, she had all those improper telephone contacts over a long period of time with this very dangerous individual. So I think it's going to be really hard for her to get away with any of this.
On Casey White's side, is he ever going to see the light of day again? Will he ever be in even a general population cell again?
Well, it's up to prison officials whether he will be stuck in solitary for the rest of his time. I think at some point he probably will get into general, just because he's serving a life sentence, essentially 75 years right now. And he's also facing another trial for a murder for hire scheme where he murdered a 50-something-year-old mother, and he faces the death penalty for that. So I would be surprised if he ever sees the light of day. But as far as solitary confinement, that's going to be up to prison officials.
Can he be found responsible if Vicky doesn't make it? Could he be responsible for her death if she doesn't survive this gunshot wound?
Under the felony murder rule, you could be. That's a very good point. If you're engaged in criminal conduct and your partner dies as a result, you can be charged with her death. But it doesn't really matter, I think, because he's already serving a 75-year sentence and could face a death penalty for yet another horrible crime that he allegedly committed. By the way, he's pled not guilty to that murder for hire plot by reason of insanity. I've never heard of that kind of defense where you didn't know the difference between right and wrong, yet you accepted money and killed someone. So I don't know how he's going to get away with that. So in the end, yeah, he could be found culpable for Vicky's death if she does pass away. But I think in the end, it won't matter much, because he is never going to see the light of day again and may even get the death penalty.
That was kind of my reaction today when I saw the charges against Vicky for using an alias in buying the car. It's like, does that really matter when she's responsible for all these other much more serious crimes when you really add up the years and the sentence and the trials? What does happen now with the trial or trials? Because no matter where these two go, are they ever going to have a chance for a fair trial given all the publicity? There's a nationwide manhunt. Their images were posted all over the country. People know who they are.
Yeah, it's been my experience as state attorney here in Palm Beach County that even in high-profile cases, you could get a jury that can deal out justice because they don't have to be ignorant of what happened. They could have said, yeah, we've heard about it. The question is whether they can be impartial, whether they can block it out and be fair. And you'd be surprised how you can find an impartial jury just about anywhere you go. And as far as what happens to Vicky if she survives, ironically, by forging someone else's name, by using a fake ID, a fake identity to buy the car, she could get more years in prison than in the escape charge, because the escape charge is a Class C felony, punishable by up to 10 years in Alabama. But the identity theft is actually a Class B felony, punishable by up to 20 years. So as they say, it's not necessarily the crime, it's the cover-up. It looks like that could get her more years in prison if she survives this than facilitating the escape itself.
Wow, that is fascinating. Facilitating the escape of a murderer, potentially, who hasn't been convicted yet, but is charged with that. All right, Dave Ehrenberg, thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks, Yeah, thanks for having me.
Next, right here on Prime, Brian Entin is standing by with the latest on Vicky White's condition tonight and the message her former boss has for her. Following breaking news tonight, a nationwide manhunt for Casey White and Vicky White over in Indiana. Now to senior national correspondent Brian Entin. He is live in Evansville, Indiana. And Brian, you started chasing this tip this morning. It ended up being the key piece authorities needed, and it all unfolded right here on News Nation Live.
It did, and truthfully, Rudabeh, so many of us thought that this couple was long gone, nowhere near here. Where did they get these cars? Did they buy them? Were they stolen? Where have they been sleeping the night? Was the $90,000 in cash that Vicky had inside that car? All things that we'll likely get the answers to in the coming days. Rudabeh?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing about the cars and what their plan ultimately was, why they camped out there for as long as they did and just didn't continue going. So were there three vehicles involved in total?
Yeah, and there may have been more. What we know of is there was the Ford Edge SUV in the beginning that Vicky bought under an alias back in Alabama that made it to Tennessee. That Ford Edge was found. Then they apparently got in this pickup truck that was abandoned here at the car wash behind me, and then they were apprehended today in that sedan. So at this point, yeah, 3 cars that we know of.
And that last car not reported stolen, according to law enforcement there. So there is a big mystery here. Did they have support? Did they plan this? How far in advance did they plan this? Were these cars waiting for them? Are there other vehicles waiting for them for a trip that they potentially planned even farther north?
Yeah, absolutely. And another big question that I have tonight is who gets the reward? A $25,000 reward was offered, and you've got a lot of people on social media already rallying behind James, the car wash manager, wanting him to get the reward since he did solve this whole thing. I asked him a little while ago off camera, did you hear about this? People really want you to get the reward. And he said, yeah, I am the one who put all the pieces together. So, I'm sort of hoping the guy gets the reward. He deserves it.
Yeah, it has been interesting to hear from him and piece together exactly how this all went down, which ended, of course, in that pursuit. All right, Brian Entin, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rudabeh.
And the manhunt for Vicky White and Casey White lasted for 11 days. But how did it start? We take you through the fugitive's steps from the very beginning. That's next on Prime. Continuing our breaking news tonight, manhunt over. The search for escaped inmate Casey White and Vicky White has ended in Indiana, but their luck living off the grid ran out, with both now in police custody. Correspondent Kelly Beeson is joining us now live, and this has been an exhaustive 11-day search for this duo.
Yeah, it absolutely has been, Rudabeh. And as you mentioned, this as the search was entering its 11th day, the pair seemingly vanished.
And we have breaking news right now. Vicky White has died. She died at 7:06 Central Time. That is according to our News Nation station in Indiana. They do have that confirmed on the record. Again, Vicky White, that corrections officer who helped Casey White escape, who shot herself following a police pursuit in Indiana earlier today, has died from her self-inflicted gunshot wound injuries. Brian Entin will join us next. Stay with us. Breaking news just into our newsroom. Vicky White has died at a hospital in Evansville, Indiana. Brian Entin is live tonight. Brian, what do we know?
Yeah, we just learned this from officials here in Indiana that Vicky White died around 7:06 p.m.
Brian Entin for us in Indiana. Thank you. Well, there was one family who feared for their lives while Casey White was on the run. I'll speak with the son of a woman Casey is charged with murdering. That's next on News Nation Prime. The fact that a dangerous fugitive is in custody tonight is a relief, especially for one family in particular. Casey White is charged with killing a woman named Connie Ridgway on October 23rd, 2015. Police found the mother stabbed to death in her living room. Investigators called it a murder for hire, and Casey White would confess to the crime 5 years later. Austin Williams is Connie Ridgway's son. He joins me now live. Thanks for being here. First of all, our condolences to you and your family. I know this must have been a very painful thing to have to live through again, and so much has unfolded today, even now within the last hour. What are your feelings tonight?
Well, it's a mix of emotions. I mean, it seems like a miracle that they were captured, but it's not the best outcome that we hoped for. You know, we're sad to hear Vicky's passing, and when we send our hearts go out to her family and friends, it's not what we were hoping for.
Were you scared when he was on the run? Were you worried for your family?
A little bit, but I know what he looks like, and I can run really fast. So I was a little bit worried, but just being a little more cautious than ever. You know, seriously looking, kind of watching where I'm going.
And what was your reaction when you learned that they were on the run, that he had escaped with the help, no less, of someone who was supposed to be guarding him?
I was just shocked. It was just shocking to me, and just afraid for my safety, for anyone who got in his way. And, you know, I knew he was had a violent history, but as you know, as things came out, he was more violent than I even realized.
This must have re-traumatized you living through this whole thing.
Yeah, it's been tough emotions, just shock and sadness. You know, we thought that we had him, then he'd escape and somebody let him escape. And it's just kind of like 2015 all over again, just the shock and the sadness.
What does justice look like for you and your family?
But it looks like Casey White back behind bars to do trial for my mother's murder. And just, you know, knowing what I know in life experience, you know, it's never over till it's over.
Yeah, and you know, this has been in a voyeuristic way, right? The whole country has been watching this unfold. There's action, there's drama, there's suspense, there's a car chase. But there are real people involved here. There are real families who are missing loved ones, and like your mother.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's been a roller coaster of emotions, and it's just I would say it's been the longest 11 days of my life by far. It's just, I can't even process it.
Yeah, it must be difficult. I mean, do you plan to be there at the trial for Casey White?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll definitely be there. When
you try to figure out what happened, why Vicky White would help him like this, what is your reaction? I mean, you said that you felt some compassion for Vicky White.
I'm not sure that she knew what she was really up against, because I mean, Casey could be a very manipulative person to have her believe that things were going a different way than they really were, so he could get what he wanted. So I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's the only thing I could think of, just knowing his history.
Yeah, now another life gone. His life, of course, basically over. He'll never see the light of day again. And your family going through so much grief and trauma still.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I really like to see the light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah. All right, Austin. Well, thank you for taking the time. I know it's not easy to talk about. And again, our thoughts are with you and your family. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. It means a whole lot.
So much has unfolded today, and even now in the last hour here on News Nation Prime. When we came on the air tonight, we knew that Casey White and Vicky White, two fugitives on the run, had been captured in Indiana. Sheriff Dave Wedding, who was on the scene, told us live on News Nation Prime tonight that Vicky White was in grave condition after they say she shot herself during that chase that ended in a crash. And then just minutes ago, we learned that Vicky White has died in a hospital in Indiana. It was an escape plan that shocked so many. How Vicky White fooled her colleagues and helped a dangerous criminal escape. They eluded authorities for 11 days, traveling through Alabama, Tennessee, Indiana, where a tip from a manager at a car dealership ultimately led to their capture. Take a listen.
How it went down, I noticed the car hanging out of the bay, which is unusual.
That was Brian Enton speaking with the manager of the car wash who tipped off authorities to the capture of Casey White. Vicky White has died. Thanks for joining us tonight. Dan Abrams is next.